Hi, I've had a few people contact me recently asking me where in the UK that you can get your scan and cut mats, because apparently there's none available at Create and Craft, or there's none available in the 12 by 12 size. In the UK, we have to get our machine and our supplies from Create and Craft. I think you can get them on Amazon. I've never bought them that way. I've just always got mine from, as I say, from Create and Craft. So what I'm going to do, I have watched a couple of programmes over the weekend, because if you watch my live video the other day, you'll know that I said I've actually updated my machine. I have the CM600, which is the UK model. I've had it for 3 years, but I've just actually invested in the Wi-Fi machine. But these two mats that you see here are the only two cutting mats that I have. Now this first one that's looking rather grubby is the first mat that came with this machine, so it's 3 years old. This mat here, excuse me, this mat here, I started cutting on towards the back end of last year, but I tend to still use this one the most. And I've heard people say that they've cut through the mats and the mats are ruined. Well, they're not ruined, you can still use them. And I'm going to show you on this one. As you'll see on the back, I've got parcel tape on the back of this. Now, when I first got this machine, I cut through the mat in kind of this area here. So I put this brown parcel tape right across, and I've cut through it in this section here, and I've done the same. So your mats are not ruined, you can still use them. I wouldn't use masking tape or painter's tape, anything like that. Just this fine, thin brown packing tape, because it's very sticky and it will stay in place. Masking tape or painter's tape has a habit of lifting, because obviously you normally use it to mask an area off, so it doesn't grab as much. That's what I'm trying to say. So it tends to want to lift, and as this mat is going in and out of your machine, what can happen is that it can lift and it can get stuck on the scanner bed. So I would only use tape. Now, I don't know if you can see here, I'll take this off. I've actually cut through this mat again. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to apply some more tape over here, and then this mat will still be perfectly usable. So I'm just going to peel a chunk off, and I'm going to stick it down right over where I've cut through, and then I can just carry on using this mat. And to be fair, I've been using it anyway, even with the hole in. But that's how I maintain my mats. Another thing I do with my mats, when I'm using them, I know it sounds obvious, but you know, I know some people do it. If you cut in a 4-inch pattern, don't use an 8.5 by 11 or an A4 piece of card. Just use, you know, a 5 by 5 piece of card or a 6 by 6, and position it, and use different parts of your mat so that you're not always cutting in the same spot. And also, when you use your mats, these mats can go in the machine in any direction. That's why they've got an arrow on both ends. So get into the habit of just, you know, sometimes putting them in the machine that way, with the, you know, the purple top showing if it's the standard mat you're using, or with the blue end showing. Another thing I do, on the protective cover, I write top in a Sharpie, and then when I take this off and start using this mat, and I put this somewhere out of the way while I'm using it, I know that when I want to put this plastic back on, as long as I can read the word top, I know that this is the right way down on the mat, because obviously your mat picks up fibres off card and fabric and all that kind of thing that you're going to use, but so does this. So if you put this on a table and it falls off and you get dust on this side, and then you then go and put that down onto your mat, you're transferring whatever was on there onto the sticky mat, and that's making your mat less sticky. You don't actually lose the stick, they just get gunked up in fibres off your paper and your card and your fabric and anything else you're using. So that's another tip that I do with my sheets. And as you can see, this one, I don't know if you can see, says the same. So it says top on here and it says top on there. And that way I know that that's always going down back on the mat in the right direction. Another thing I do is actually re-stick my mats, and that's why this one's lasted 3 years old. As you can see, it's pretty, you know, grubby looking compared to this one that I've only been using since maybe, I don't know, September, October or something last year. So I use a repositionable glue, and it's a Zig one, and it's by Kuretake. Now I know some people use a water-based repositionable glue, something like, I think it's called Aleene's Tack It Over, if you're in the US or somewhere else other than the UK. And that one, from what I've seen on videos, you dilute it with water and you paint it on your mat. This one just comes in this handy dispenser with a great big thick jumbo tip on it. And basically all as I do with this one, it has to be the repositionable, the two-way, sorry. And basically when this comes out, I'll just see if you can, I'll hold it up so you can see it. When this comes out of the canister, it's blue. If you stick something to it straight away while it's blue, it's a permanent bond. So you obviously don't want to do that on your mat. But if you put some of this glue on a piece of card or paper and you leave it to go clear, effectively then it's dry, anything you stick to that then is repositionable. So you can remove it, put it back on, etc. So that's how you do it when you stick in your mats. So the way I re-stick my mats, I'm not going to peel all this off now because I don't want to get my arms off, the fluff off my jumper all on the mat. But basically what I would do, I'll try and get this in so you can see me. I work in a square at a time. So if you're working on your 12 by 12 mat, it's divided up into 4 6 by 6 squares. I just pump this to activate some glue, and then I literally just draw a straight line in that 6-inch square, and I keep on doing that all the way along until I've done that square. Then when I've done it that way horizontally, I do the same vertically, and then I move on to the next square. Obviously I wouldn't normally do it with this on, this would be off, and I would leave that then completely to air dry. Now let's let me put this back on because it's quite a chunky tip and the glue gets everywhere, and I'm not sure whether you're going to be able to see this on the camera or not, but there is glue there where I've started to roll it on, and it's wet and I can see that it's like a pale blue. So you would leave that completely to air dry. Don't touch it, don't go near it, just wait till it's completely clear. Once it's completely clear, might only be 10 minutes. I tend to do mine and walk away and leave them and just go off and do another job and maybe come back half an hour or so later, maybe even longer. But once it's dry, it's then safe to put the plastic back on it. Now obviously I'm not going to do it because that's still wet, and if I put this plastic over there now, I'll effectively have just glued this to that permanently, because as I said, while it's still wet, it's a permanent adhesive. So I'm just going to keep that rolled back and out of the way. So that's how I look after my mats. What you can do in between uses, you can use a non-alcoholic baby wipe, and you can wipe over your mat with that to get all the debris and dirt off. Use your spatula that you get with your Scan and Cut to scrape up any bits of loose debris that are left behind from when you're peeling card and things off your mat. Wipe them over with an alcohol-free baby wipe. Again, leave them to air dry. And that's another thing I do with this plastic. The side that goes down to the mat, I wipe that over with an alcohol-free baby wipe as well. and I leave them both to air dry. And once they're completely dry, then I put the cover back on the mat and I put it away. I store my mats flat. I have one of these Alex 6-drawer cabinets on units on casters. I think it's on my blog somewhere. I did a blog post about it, and it has the really wide drawers. So I store my mats in there completely flat. I've seen people use like trouser hangers and put them on the top of the mats and hang them up. It's entirely up to you. But as I said with the video, the live video I did the other day, which was on the pen tool, the results that you get from using this equipment are determined by how you look after them. So with the pen tool, the results that you get out of it are determined by how you set the pen properly in the holder. The results that you get from cutting your projects with your mats are determined by how you look after your mats. So, you know, good maintenance of your mats is essential. Also, when you're putting paper or card or whatever on your mat, make sure, don't just put it on and rub it down with your hand. Use the back of your spatula. Let's see if I can just find mine. Use the flat part of your spatula. Put your card down and burnish thoroughly, really hard with the back of this. And that will help your media stick to your mat as well. So that's mats. As I say, I'm just going to move these out of the way now. Just to recap for anybody that's only just joined, this will be up on my channel. This is going live. I'm using the new mobile app that's available to people with over 10,000 subscribers. But I will make sure it goes up and stays on my channel so you can come back and watch it at a later date. But basically, if you cut through your mat, they're not ruined. Just put parcel tape on it. Use this thin brown parcel tape and you're good to go. So I'm just going to move those out of the way. So that's mats. So another thing I want to talk about are your blades. Now, I'll just show you these. These are the little canisters that your blades come in. And on mine, again, I use a Sharpie and I've put DC for deep cut. So that's the deep cut blade. I've only ever had one. It came, or I bought it when I bought this machine. So this is 3 years old. I don't use it very often, but when I do, I keep the plastic end cover over the blade on it and I keep it in this tube. So that's my deep cut blade. I got a standard blade with the machine. Just trying to find the one that says used on it. So when I got the machine, I got a standard blade with it. And on this one, I've put standard and used. So there's one blade in there, and that's the blade that's, again, 3 years old. The blade that's in here, I only started using, again, at the back end of last year, probably about the time I started using the other mat. So I've effectively used this blade and this mat for 3 years. And as I say, if you look after them, you know, they're very sharp. I know they only look fragile. They are quite strong, but obviously you can break them. So you do have to be careful. So that's my used one. Now, I'm not going to throw that away or discard it, because if at some point in the future I want to cut, say, glitter card, I will use this blade. Glitter card will dull your blades. There's no two ways about it. So I will use this. I might have to use a bit deeper blade setting or a bit more pressure, but it's still got some cut life in it, but it's just not giving me absolute crisp, clean results on everyday card that I want to use. So that's the reason I decided to change. So again, I keep it in this canister and it says used on it, and I know that I can then use that on something else. And then these are 2 more standard blades that I've bought when they were in stock and they've not been used, and I just keep them in the canisters. So my advice to you would be, when the blades do come back in stock, just stock up on them. You know, if you look after your blades, you shouldn't need to have lots of blades, but I know it's a pain if you've only got maybe one and you break it and you're in the middle of doing a project, or you desperately need to get something cut on your machine. So that leads me into my next tip. which is if you've got a blade, providing it's not damaged, you can resharpen your blades. To be honest, I don't tend to do it because, as I say, I keep spare blades, but I have done it in the past with other cutting machines when I had a Craft Robo and a Pazzles cutting machine previously. Basically, just get yourself some cooking foil, silver foil, aluminium foil, fold it up so you've got a little bit of a thickness. I'd leave the blade in the holder. Don't try and do this with the blade in your hand in case you slip and cut your finger. Wind your blade out. Start on a lowish number, so with the blade barely visible. And don't really apply a lot of pressure, but just cut into the foil. I'm not sure whether you're going to be able to see this, but I have cut in these little slits in there. Then wind your blade out to get it a bit deeper. And you can see, if you look closely, you can see where the tip is, so you know which way you should be cutting, and just cut into the silver foil. As I say, don't apply a lot of hand pressure because you don't want to damage your blade. And just keep doing it, work your way through, wind it up till it's nearly fully out. On this one you can probably, if I put my hand behind it, you can probably see the shape of the blade, so you know where the angle is, and that's the angle that you want to be cutting. If I try and show you, can you see where I've cut through? So that's another tip. I'm just going to wind that back down because I don't want to leave it on 12 in case I forget. Then another thing you can do, undo your blade completely and be very careful here. If you've got tweezers or anything, use those. Don't know if I've got anything to hand that I can get this out with. But just take the blade out, be very, very careful, and then just tap this, because you do get bits of paper and debris that collect in here. So just tap it on your work surface and see if anything drops out of it. Then get your blade, just drop your blade back in and put this back on. Screw it all the way down past, mine goes right past 12. I know some stop on 12, but mine goes all the way past. And then wind it back to set it to the number that you would normally cut on. So they're just some tips. Hopefully they might be of some help to you. As I say, this is the repositionable glue that I use to restick the mats. I'll just move these out of the way and bring this back in now. And I'm not sure that you'll be able to see this on the screen, but this is clear now. It's no longer blue. So that means I'm safe to put the plastic cover back on here. Now, one thing I will tell you is use this sparingly, because this is a really strong stick, even when you're using it as repositionable. And if you put it all over your mat and then you put some card on it, you may find that you have a bit of a devil getting it off. So use it lightly and sparingly. And when you do use it, just keep within the mat areas, these 6-inch square areas. Don't go anywhere beyond, on this particular mat, this blue line. Don't go anywhere near this ruler on any of the perimeter of this mat. Just keep it purely and simply within here, and then you'll be fine, because you don't want to go over the edges, because if you go over these edges here, then when you put this in your machine, you've got the possibility of getting glue on your rollers of your machine. I don't know if you can see my machine, it's just out of, I'll just try and bring it in a bit without knocking the camera. I'm not sure if you can see these rollers that are on your machine here. You don't want to get glue on these. There's one on either end. So I'll just move them back out of the way. So as I say, you can re-stick your mats, you can refresh them with an alcohol-free baby wipe. If you do that, do the bottom side of your clear plastic as well. Make sure they're both fully dry before you put them back together. Re-stick them. If you cut through them, tape them up, they're not ruined. You don't have to run out and buy another mat just because you've cut through it. But as I say, don't use masking tape or painter's tape. You want this sticky kind of parcel tape. It's very, very, very thin, but very sticky. And as I said to you, I cut through mine when I first got it, and that's over 3 years ago, and it's still on here. And the amount of time I use this mat going in and out of the machine, it's never peeled off once. So that's mats. Blades, try and keep a few spares if you can. Keep your used ones. You keep the canister that your blade comes in and write used on it, or dull, or whatever you want to put on it, and keep them, because you can then use those for cutting things like glitter card. One thing I would say is I do a little bit of sewing, not as much as I'd like to. I've not been doing recently, but I would never use my sewing scissors to cut paper. But I have to say that the blades that I use in my scan and cut, I use for everything. I use them to cut paper, I use them to cut fabric, card, chipboard, plastic, vinyl, everything. I don't know why I do it with the blade for the machine when I wouldn't dream of doing it with my sewing scissors, but that's just the way it goes. But I do know some people that use a blade for paper and a blade for fabric. So again, you might want to keep these little plastic canisters and write fabric on one and have one for fabric. So that was just because, as I say, somebody contacted me recently and said that the mats they couldn't get hold of in the UK and didn't know where to get them. And then I was on the Brother Facebook page, I think it was last night or the night before, and there were several comments that I'd saw on there where people were saying they can't get mats and they can't get blades. I did read that someone had said they'd cut through the mat and they were trying to get a new mat. So I just thought I'd put this live video out that, as I say, will stay on my channel, so that if you are in the position where you've cut through your mat, don't think that you have to run out and buy another one. Yes, go and get one if you want to, but you can still use it. There are ways around it. So I hope that might be of some help to anybody. I can see that we've got 26 or so people here. If there's anybody that's got any quick questions before I go, if you can just make a comment now and I'll try and see if I can read it on the screen. As I explained the other day when I was doing the pen tool one, it's difficult to see the comments come up on the screen when you're trying to concentrate on what you're doing. But if there is any comments, let me know, or alternatively leave them under this video after this goes up on my channel and I will respond to you. Just having a quick drink, sorry. If there is anybody that's still there, I'll just show you a couple of projects that are coming to my channel soon. This is a little box I made in Scan and Cut Canvas. This is going to be a video that's scheduled already. It's recorded and it's on YouTube. It's just not made live yet. This will be live over the next few weeks. This is a project I was playing around with in Canvas last night and just made this little St. Patrick's Day card. All this was done in Canvas. I found an image on the internet of a 4-leaf clover. I converted it into a cutting file. I used one of the inbuilt fonts. For the little pot of gold, I used an oval and this shape you can see here and welded them together for the bottom. But before I welded them, I duplicated this shape and kept it separately so that I can put it up on 3D foam. I'm not sure whether you can see, but that's raised. This little bit here that looks like the gold in the pot was a basic scallop circle that's in your machine and in Canvas, and I just cut it in half and made myself a little pot of gold. The dashed lines on the green paper that you can see here were done in Canvas, and I made the shape card in Canvas. Once I'd made this shape, I welded two together. But when I was putting it together, I decided that I wanted some dash lines around the white and I couldn't be bothered going back into Canvas doing them, so I put those on by hand. But that's not a project, it's just something I was playing with last night. But if you want to know how to do things like this with like a bigger centre or a bigger letter in the middle or something like that, leave me comments and I'll do another a tutorial on it in a few weeks. So anyway, I don't think there are any comments before I go. If there are, just post them again quickly in case I've missed them. But if not, I hope that you found this helpful, this mat and blade maintenance. And as I say, it will remain on my channel, so you can come back and watch it over and over. So if that's it for now and there are no comments, thank you for being here. Thank you for giving me the thumbs up. And if you've got any questions that you want me to answer, as I say, leave a comment under the video. If you've got anything that you want me to show in future videos, again, leave me comments and I'll see what I can do. Thanks a lot. Bye.